Please open in your learning workbook to page 138. We will now solve some example problems involving composing functions. Given f of x equals x squared plus 2x and g of x equals x subtract 4, find f composed with g of 0. The first thing we want to do when we solve a problem like this is remember the definition of composite functions. The definition says f composed with g of x is the same thing as f of g of x. If you look at the left-hand side of that definition and compare it with what they're asking us to find in this problem, there's only one change. The 0 is sitting where the x used to be. So if we simply change this x to a 0, that will tell us what this equals. F composed with g of 0 must mean f of g of 0. So if we can find what this is, we'll have the answer to our problem. F of g of 0. Now there are two major skills when composing functions together. The first skill is for when the input is a number. The second skill is for when the input is a letter. And we will treat those two types of problems very differently. When there is a number for your input, we will work from the inside out. What I mean by that is we're going to do what's inside first. The first thing we're going to determine is, what is g of 0? We're going to turn that into just a number. Well, to find g of 0, we simply have to remember how to evaluate functions, which we learned earlier this semester. We know that g of x is equal to x subtract 4. So if you want to know what g of 0 is, then everywhere you see an x, you just need to put a 0. And sometimes you have to have parentheses. For example, on the left, you have to have parentheses. But here you do not, because x does not have a multiplier, it does not have an exponent, and it's not being subtracted. So g of 0 equals 0 minus 4, and 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So I get that g of 0 is equal to negative 4. So this thing in the green box here, this g of 0, is just the number negative 4. So I'm going to replace that g of 0 with the number negative 4. We're halfway done with the problem. Now we're going to continue and find what is f of negative 4. Very similar skill. Again, in our side workspace, we know that f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x. So therefore, f of negative 4 would be negative 4 squared plus 2 times negative 4. Notice that both of these negative 4's are in parentheses. This is because this x has an exponent and this x has a multiplier. Now simplify by following order of operations. Exponents come first, and negative 4 times itself is 16. And then we do the multiplication. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Adding a negative is subtraction, so this is 16 minus 8, which is just 8. So f of negative 4 equals 8. And that's what we have over here, f of negative 4. So our final answer for this problem is 8. F composed with g of 0 equals 8. Okay, both of these are acceptable ways of writing your final answer. This is what we were asked to find. This is putting it all together as a single inequality statement. Okay, let's try another one. This time we're asked to find G composed with f of 5. Okay, let's write the definition. Now, the definition that we learned had the f listed first and the g listed second. F composed with g of x equals f of g of x. But f and g are just names, and we can swap the order of the names on the left-hand side, and therefore swap the order of the names on the right-hand side. This gives us a new definition. G composed with f of x is equal to g of f of x. This is one of those times where math behaves exactly as you would expect that it would. So, for this problem, we're going to rewrite this using this definition, and we will get g of f of 5. This is a number, so we work from the inside out. Which means the first thing we need to calculate is, what is f of 5? Let's do that on our side workspace. We know that f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x. So therefore, f of 5 was found by replacing all of those x's with a 5. In this case, every 5 has to be put in parentheses. Now, simplify by following order of operations. 5 squared is 25. 2 times 5 is 10. 25 plus 10 is 35. So f of 5 equals 35. This thing that we're trying to replace with a number, f of 5, can be replaced with the number 35. Okay, so now the next thing we have to do is compute what is g of 35. Once again, we can use our side workspace. We know that g of x is equal to x minus 4. So therefore, g of 35 will equal 35 minus 4. 35 minus 4 is 31. So g of 35 equals 31. And therefore the answer to our question is 31. If you'd like, you can write your answer as g composed with f of 5 equals 31. Okay, both of these ways of writing your final answer are acceptable as far as I am concerned.